Hello, sports fans. No?
That sounds good. I mean, Bill, honestly, I'm just here and excited to talk about sports and feel okay about it.
Okay. So that's the beginning. Hello, sports fans, and then you just cut it off?
Oh, sure. For now, we'll work on it. We'll put it in post.
All right. Hey, it's episode 2 of the Sport Ballers. Don't be confused. I know you all want to throw that extra S onto the sport, but it's just one. It's singular. Sport Ballers, not sports ballers, because that's harder to say.
Oh.
So if we're going to continue to do this, and this podcast is going to grow and, take on the biggest podcast in the land, we got to make sure everybody's on board.
Watch out, Bill Simmons, we're coming for you.
Exactly.
Okay, so I know you and I both have a couple things to talk about.
Yeah.
I'll let you kind of steer this, but you just introduced me to something that was really
amazing.
Yeah,
no, I mean, it's okay, because number one on our agenda, we really needed to do a post-mortem on the Women's World Cup football tournament that happened, or as we should be referring to just as World Cup soccer, because at this point it's the best show in town, especially for American fans.
Couple of quick questions off top.
Yeah.
What do you think of Bill Simmons' suggestion that the Women's World Cup should be every 2 years?
I don't think I'm in favor of it. I understand. Okay. So his argument is, unlike men's football, soccer, where there's a ton going on and you have all these established tournaments, you have these established leagues, you have basically, something huge happening every year. It's better for the World Cup to be every 4 years, and in the women's game there's less of that so far. Hopefully that changes, so you could go 2 years and it still be the most exciting thing out there. I just think it is so exciting, and you get people so tuned into it now. And I don't know, do you care as much about the Olympics that they're every 2 years, even though it's different sports? It seems Yeah,
but I guess to me twofold. Yeah, I would love to just see America win multiple times all the time. This tournament was great, and the closing of the gap between America and the rest of the countries, predominantly the European countries that are now starting to invest in women's soccer at a much higher rate than previous. Yeah. Anything that puts that on TV is fantastic, and it's so much fun to watch these games. That U.S. versus France game, I enjoyed every second of it. I like the greater. More visibility, whatever it takes to get more people in the stands. Sarah and I are going to be going to some Orlando Pride games here, but everything just to get more of that I'm into.
Yeah.
But then also to be introduced to the cast of characters that's on this team. And case in point, the victory celebration Instagram feed was Ashlyn Harris.
Yeah.
I mean, one of some of the coolest videos. And what's great about it is they're just getting to be normal people that are victory celebration. Sure, they're going to get knocked because people are like, oh, this isn't how you're supposed to act, and it's like every other men's team does the same types of videos, and we embrace it. I mean, when what's his name won the Stanley Cup finally, he went on a 7-month bender, the guy for the Capitals.
Yeah, Ovechkin. But what I like about that, the double standard there, is I saw a lot of that criticism, and it was like that, there was somebody who was like, well, this should be a private, celebration. They don't need to, they shouldn't have it out in the open. I'm like, oh, screw that. It was awesome to watch. They're hilarious. And then it was like, I saw that with my young daughter. That's always the thing. It's always, let's pull the kids in, and to hear that kind of language. And I'm like, well,
what am I supposed to tell my young daughter? I don't know.
I'm like,
parent, figure it out.
First of all, I want to know what abusive relationship you have with your child that they are so sheltered that they have never heard that language, because 2019, it's pretty much everywhere. And second point is, they obviously are not a hockey fan, because because we already saw that St. Louis could not get through even the most formal interviews without dropping at least 3 F-bombs per person.
You're absolutely right. But so one of the things that I just loved about this team was the player Rose Lavelle.
Yeah.
the awkward like her story of kind of being she was an amateur just like 3 years ago playing in like third division, like college, basically college soccer, and then also playing on an amateur team in Washington State. And now she's like arguably the most important player on that team to keep the glue together. But she's so awkward. It's awesome. Like the knee high, like the socks pulled up over the knees. And then Megan Rapinoe, like the polished like machine that Megan Rapinoe is. Like Megan has her like victory celebration of like the arms in the air, right? It was like beautiful. It looks great. Totally my Twitter page feed picture right now. But Rose Lavelle comes over with like the Vince McMahon like power walk, like just lanky and just awkward the whole time. And then you just shared with me a video of Rose Lavelle juggling a soccer ball to Eurythmics
when she was 11 years old,
which is amazing.
When she was 11 years old, I just
she's so awkward. It's great. She's the star we need in this country. It's awesome.
I first, just so you know, you don't get your slow ride podcast people after you. I believe it is Rapinoe.
Very, very true. Sorry.
I just want to save you from that.
Yes.
No, and I think that even the stuff, you know, with the twerking and with everything else after the game, and I was sort of moved away from that. I just wanted to just leave this one lasting thought. Put all of that up against Rob Gronkowski.
Oh yeah.
And anything he's ever done.
But I had so much fun watching that team. I would love to have this type of concentration of America focus, you know, or like collective zeitgeist of watching the women's soccer team every 2 years. It'd be fantastic. We do have the She Believes Cup, which is like every, I think, 3 years. The other tournament that kind of comes.
Well, won't you have the Olympics every other within there?
No, you're right. We do have the Olympics, and that's a little bit different in the women's game than the men's game, because the men's Olympics tournament is always U23 players, then you're allowed to have 3 overaged players to play the Olympics, whereas the women's, you can have that team. That's very true. So you do have that kind of tournament. But I just have I had so much fun watching it. I loved every second of it. And then all of like the English tabloids starting to get involved, of just like, which almost brings more validity to the sport, on like the tea drinking celebration. Brilliant. It was like, those are the things that we need to grow the sport. And oh man, it was so awesome.
I think that my other argument for the, you know, a couple things back to the 2 year versus 4 years, just my last thought on that is that I want the U.S. women's game and the world women's game to be at a point where having it every 2 years would be a disruption. Like, their leagues were still playing without them now. And we see it, like, you see it in the men's game completely. And there's, especially when it comes to who's going to make the team. And it's something that even in World Cup mountain biking, and we're seeing it this year, it always kind of screws with the dynamic of the race, because it's the making the Olympics in that case is more important than what you're doing for your trade team. You know, and that kind of stuff. So I understand now if there's no other show in town, but my hope is that what I would more like to see is more focus on building up women's soccer, especially in the U.S., get it to and past the MSL level. And I think that we are at the generation, you know, of kids who are now adults that would support that. And they no longer look. We're already seeing that our traditional ball and stick sports that are starting to fall off a little bit. You know, it may, I know we've been saying this for half a century now, but maybe this is the time that up and coming U.S. fans who can afford tickets are going to be able to succeed.
Yeah, there's teams in the women's league that are crushing it right now, right? Like the Portland Thorns are almost selling out every game. I think they're averaging over 15,000. So you've got a lot of that. Portland or Orlando's kind of struggling a little, but I would hope that the
what about a barnstorming tour?
Yeah. Well, there you go. Oh, that'd be great. Like a throwback to the old
have the national team go around and basically beat up on all of the all of the local franchises.
I think that would be great. I'm so into this. Good for them. But that wasn't the only thing that has struck our fancy in the world of sports that I couldn't wait to talk to you about.
Yeah, well, we have a couple of things out there. The NBA, of course, is something that we could get into the weeds and stay there, I believe, for the next 3 hours, which we're not going to do. One of the things that kind of caught my attention, and I don't know if you were able to see any of it, was the rise of Corey Coco Gauff in Wimbledon.
In passing, obviously the big thing I noticed was the victory over Venus, and then like the hug at the net, and then the post-match interviews, and then that kind of brought her into my conscience of her skills. And then obviously I was starting to watch like more, not watching all the matches live, but catching it when it was on TV and passing when I was traveling to see kind of how she was doing. But I did see a lot of gifs of her mom celebrating in the crowd with her and Coco's dad, and that was awesome.
Yes. And she, what I think more than that, what sort of captured me was this is a 15-year-old woman who was on center stage in Wimbledon in the third round, lost the first set, was losing the second set and had a match point against her. So basically was a serve away from going home, and dug in under one of the highest pressure situations you can have in sports. I mean, it's a solo sport. There's only one person that can screw up, and that's you. You don't have teammates to lean on. You don't have anything. And she was able to win that game, fight back from, I believe, 2 match points, go into the next set close. It's not like her opponent fell apart. They played a hard third set, and she came away and won the match. I will say, and I'm sorry, I forget.
But unfortunately, she ended up losing too, though, right?
Yeah,
she ended up like in the straight sets. But it's kind of like the old tour adage, like sometimes it's okay to go out a little early and get the experience. Maybe that's the key here. But I was more thrilled also by like her father's an accomplished college basketball player, and then to go into tennis and to see like what she was able to accomplish so quickly and so young. But then Venus was, growing up, when I got my Sports Illustrated for kids, I remember having Venus on the cover of that on, I think, a couple issues. And then, Serena came in, and now, to have, like, it's women's tennis in America is like, the future is so bright and so fantastic. And then the men's tennis, you're like, oh man, what's going on here? And here in Orlando is the big USTA, like, National Tennis Center, where they now have the residential trainings and all of that. And, so it's kind of more on our conscious here, but it's always fun to watch. In tennis, is Wimbledon your favorite? Like for me, I love watching US Open. Hard court, fast. I just love the crowd. It's like that New York style crowd. Is there one of the Grand Slams you like the best?
I enjoyed, I grew up watching tennis, and I enjoyed Wimbledon more on the women's side. I think the men's side is boring as hell for Wimbledon because it's way too fast, and it's just a server's game, and there's really no strategy to it. That's kind of why I would probably prefer. US Open is good, but even the French is great because it's such a game of strategy, and it's such a game of endurance, which I really enjoy. But going back just to Coco for 1 second, here's my bigger question for you, having watched tennis in the past. And this actually gets into the NBA as well, is the science and the pitfalls of comps. So the comp that you hear for Coco Gauff over and over is Serena.
Yeah.
Or Venus, who are two completely different players. The only thing that they have in common with Coco is they're all black.
Yes, for sure.
When I saw her play, and especially in that game, I'd say Monica Seles would be a closer comp for me. There was someone who won a Grand Slam at, I think, 16 years old. It was the French Open. Had ice in her veins. Was able to come to the net some, but just being able to set in there and just that focus that she had. That's what it reminded me of. Okay. The vocalization aside, and just to what I mean about the NBA is where you always see, and it's kind of funny because it's a complete 180 on what was happening here. Oh, the other thing is, I think that the families, the Goff family and the Richard family are completely different.
Oh, totally polar opposite. Like that's something I wanted to, yeah.
And to see that was sort of an odd, like always compare.
I like the Monica Seles comp a lot better than like saying what Jennifer Capriati, right? Like
Capriati,
the young teenage upstart that then just falls into not playing as well.
Yeah,
whereas Monica Seles, like she came back after the the stabbing that happened. I mean, I forgot about that until you said Monica Seles' name. Like, if that would have happened today, like in the 24-hour news cycle that we have nowadays, I mean, my mind would be completely blown on the coverage that type of incident would have versus where it was, those years ago.
Yeah, for those who don't know the story, Monica Seles and Steffi Graf were two huge rivals. A German deranged fan of Graf ran onto the court and
during a break
stabbed Monica Seles with a knife. Which just insane. And the crazy thing though is that we sit there and think, well, that couldn't happen today. I don't see why not. Security hasn't changed. I mean, we already have, there was a story that was just talked about in Major League Baseball because I forget the player, but there was different women were running out into the outfield and giving him kisses during the game, and people were like, oh well, it's cute. Well, it's cute until it's somebody with a different intent, and it really shouldn't happen. And the security teams for whoever that franchise is shouldn't allow it to happen. But back to my comp comparison, what I always laugh at for the NBA comps, which is a huge thing, and it's what we're going through now. You do it through the draft hours. Who does this person remind you? That's a comps comparisons. Who does this? If we're going to take Zion. Who does Zion remind you of? What kind of player is he? A Karl Malone? Is he Michael Jordan? Who is he? And they do all these comps, and you get to the white guys, and it can be big. It can be a big. It can be a guard. It doesn't matter. The comp has to be to another NBA white guy.
Yeah.
Without exception. You never see
There's
these
a lot
comps
of John Stockton's, Larry Birds, and Kevin McHale's.
Which I know, Steph Curry is throwing this whole, just because you're always thinking, if JJ Redick had come out, today, would he be a Steph Curry comp?
Yeah. That's a good point. I guess I don't even think about that as I'm rediscovering my love for basketball now, right? The building that up. But I think that's a good point that you bring up, instantly. It's also, there's the classic American white guy basketball player. Right.
Which is no longer true with the European players.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So then you have the European guys and do people even consider, there's this whole other level of what is the white basketball player that you start to see? Because then people immediately just start to compare the European to the other European. Which one of them reminds you of Sabonis?
Which now, and it's something that I love about the NBA today and how the game has changed so much, and it's really positionless basketball, is that you can't be a big in the NBA anymore unless you got a little bit of that European flair.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you have to be able to, Giannis has to be able to bring the ball up the court. He has to be able to hit a three here and there, or else the defense is, going to not be honest.
Episode 1. I have so much fun now watching because the positionless basketball, but then also kind of a lot less of this post-up play, we're just going to post the guy down low and throw it to, Patrick Ewing, who's just going to muscle it into the basket. Now, there's so much here. And then you have this second silly season of NBA, which is just as awesome that I love. I know the salary, we talk about player empowerment era, and there's this salary cap in the NBA, which has a lot of rules that I don't always understand how they work. But what it does is it means that there's some great player movement. There's trading of draft picks. I would love this so much for professional cycling if they had like some kind of salary cap like this, so we could start playing the old hot stove. Like, ooh, who's gonna go to Lotto Jumbo? They still have 17 million in their cap space. Are they going to be bringing over Tom Skunes to? And you're just like, there's so much there. And then in the NBA, like Kawhi with picking the LA Clippers in a seismic change in the NBA, the most brilliant move. I have so much respect for this guy now because he screwed over the Lakers and to a lesser extent the Raptors, but what he did to orchestrate the trade for Paul George was basically leverage the entire future of two franchises on his desires for 2 years of just pure glory in LA. Well, it's awesome.
And the thing, people are talking about him being the biggest power broker in the NBA right now. I know it's the obvious joke was comparing him to Kaiser Soze, which somebody I saw recently just sort of punched up.
That's a comparative of that I like though. That's hilarious.
Somebody punched it up where it's Kawhi Soze, which makes which is much better.
And he does kind of have the limp because he's got a lot of games on him. Right, so like at the end in the playoffs, he kind of had the.
He should have walked off of Game 7 and all of a sudden been like walking perfectly.
Just dragged the leg. Yeah, it would have been great.
The thing about it is though, like at the core of Kawhi Leonard's genius, and something that I think that Kevin Durant and obviously LeBron James and a lot of these other players could maybe learn something from is that his genius was he stayed quiet. He didn't say anything. Yeah. Nobody knew what he was going to do. That's all it took in the NBA to be a genius was to not go on Instagram, to not go on to Twitter, to not tell your aunt, to not have your TV show on HBO or ESPN where the boardroom, whatever it was, and talk about what you were going to do. He said nothing.
So, that is so awesome and brilliant, and I'm happy you bring this up because there's the character of the Uncle Dennis, which is basically his agent that kind of was the only official voice of what's happening, and he kept it low. Kawhi to me is an enigma that I love every single part of. People are trying to read the tea leaves, like, oh, well, he bought a house in San Diego where he went to college at San Diego State, and then they're like, oh, well, he's. Maybe he wants to go there, and then, he's definitely going to be the Lakers because the Clippers can't bring him a second, good player to join the league. And then he's like, hey, Paul George, I want you on my team. And now the dominoes are falling at a much later rate that all of a sudden the really good free agents were gobbled up almost immediately, that there's other teams now that are scrambling to find things. And I love every moment of this that I'm talking more about the NBA right now when there's no games on than during kind of that second round of the playoffs where I'm just like, oh, can this just get over already? I want the finals so it can be done.
Yeah, I think there's a report out now that he never even met with the Lakers in person. He just strung them along the whole time, and until all of the other free agents were signed, so they were a weaker team. I mean, that's just. Do you think he was laughing and
doing the Kawhi laugh during all of this when he was watching the? I mean. The amount of media prognosticators and journalists that had no clue where he was going and the orchestration of this Paul George trade blows my mind.
Yeah.
I did see that nice article where he also reached out to Kevin Durant to see if Kevin Durant wanted to go somewhere with him, and Durant was blown away that Kawhi was reaching out and was honored that that he wanted to have that conversation. That was pretty cool. My favorite thing about this whole move is that we don't have a super team right now in the NBA, right? You have maybe 6-7 teams that are clearly kind of your A-leaguers that you're like, wow, that's going to be some good basketball team. That includes the Jazz, the Warriors, who pretty much retooled. I mean, they did a good job. They got out of this okay. The Nets, and then but the Nets are still a year off. But then Boston's going to be good. They got Kemba. And Philly? I mean, there's some good teams
Philly's
here.
a mess. Philly's a mess.
They got
the team that, as much as... they were the darlings for a day, and then they became the laughing stock again. But I think that in the end, the Lakers actually came out of this okay. I mean, they picked up Boogie, which was a huge pickup for them. The one thing where I think that the Clippers still have the advantage over them, and where you see like Kawhi talking to Durant, and you look at that and you go, well, that's going to work. And that's something, again, that I love about how Kawhi plays the game, is that he wants to win. He doesn't have to be the man.
Exactly.
And it wasn't like Kevin Durant. That is whole Kevin Durant's thing that's in his head, it seems like, is that he didn't get the respect in Golden State, but he, even being the, two-time finals MVP, and winning trophies there.
That was Steph's team.
He still didn't feel like it was his team. I think if you said, oh, you know what, the Raptors, that was Fred VanVleet's team, Kawhi would have been like, yeah, it was. Good for him.
Well, no, then he'd laugh. And then there's so much. And then looking around the league, so as a Timberwolves fan, I was getting excited because we got this new general manager, and he's known as a wheeler dealer and like really kind of a forward thinker. He worked under Daryl Morey in Houston and was super. So they went all in on getting D'Angelo Russell. They got him in a helicopter to like do the old fashioned like free agent like PowerPoint, like really convince this guy. In the last minute, Golden State comes in and swoops him away, and it like was that dose of reality that all Minnesota fans needed. That like, yeah, you're not a player in this league. You're gonna have to wait. You're gonna have to do it creatively and build up. And it's similar to Orlando here, where Orlando's gonna have to just build, slowly over time, kind of like how the Utah Jazz have done it, and then eventually just make the splash that's going to get you over the top. But I will say that during this free agency period, Sarah and I got I got jazzed, and then I convinced Sarah that we got ourselves some a 10-game pack for the Magic.
Awesome.
Like a weekender series. So like I'm stoked. I'm like going to go to 10 NBA games. I'm like I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I may have to go to some Wizards games just to see some of these other teams in the league.
Well, but then you think about the teams like the Wizards, who have this like albatross of a contract for John Wall, and how do they get out of it? And it's like my favorite thing to talk about, because you're just, once you start looking at the numbers and you start seeing what these players are now, all the money for a lot of these players can be made outside of the league, right? With, the top level ones are going to be able to, leverage, shoe deals, advertising, ownership stakes. I mean, there's a lot of things for the top players, but the kind of that mid-range player is just, they're enjoying the ride, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. There was some guy who I have to go back and look at it. They were talking about like the big winner who has been on like 2 championship teams on the bench, and now is going to make like $17 million next year.
Yeah. Well, and then, so when's the hangover? And like, that's the best part, right? In 3 years, we're all going to be looking at these contracts going like, wait, why did we pay that person this much money that ties up my contract, the salary cap room for so long? I don't know. I'm ready. It would be great. I do think that you and I need to go convince Spencer that we need a league pass. I agree with you there.
Yes.
Share the login or whatever, and just go to town on watching NBA games. I will also say that I've become such a fan. I know I said this in episode 1, but like the rule changes in the NBA now to make it more of a free-flowing game.
Yeah.
It's a lot less of that, like give both teams 100 and put 2 minutes on the clock and arbitrarily, dish out fouls. Like, yeah, there's still some of that, but it's way more tactical and exciting. Seeing the 3-point pull-ups instead of the layups on the fast breaks is awesome.
Yeah, but back to this free agency, a couple things we have to touch on here. First off, now that Oklahoma City has basically lost all of its stars, over the last couple years, from Durant to Harden to and
Westbrook's going away.
George. Yeah, so the only one left, 11 years with Oklahoma, is Westbrook, and now he's kind of open to trade. And I know you thought maybe possibly Minnesota could do that, which I don't think would be a good idea. But it looks like I'll bet that he ends up on the Heat. What Oklahoma City got for Paul George was insane. The amount of picks that they...
Wasn't it like 7 first-round picks?
Yeah. And now if they unload Westbrook, they're going to get even more picks. This is a team that has bigger budget constraints than any other franchise out there. They're almost like the Athletics. Like Billy Beane's going to have to come in there and try to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
But for me right now, I'm like, great, you have all these picks. Oklahoma City is turning into the Star Wars nerds of the NBA in that they are buying all of the figurines and they're keeping them in the packaging and they're not allowed to open up the lightsabers or the Boba Fett toys or anything else because they are of such great value that they can never use them, and they just have these picks just lined up. Look at what we've done. We're the best team on paper there's ever been. We have 18 first-round picks for the next 2 decades. It's like, what are they going to do with it? What's going to happen? Are they actually ever going to turn that into a winning team?
It's going to be brilliant for a couple of reasons. One is they got a lot of the picks for that like 2022 draft, which is when the high schoolers get to come out first. So like they can really, now they might, there might be a Kwame Brown or whoever the Wizards took in round 1. Some real failed busts in there. But I mean, come on, you could have some. Orlando or Oklahoma City is going to end up being a real kingmaker in this league. And the best part is they know what they are as a market. Their GM seems brilliant. It's kind of like the Pelicans. Like the Pelicans won the Zion sweepstakes. They got a haul for Anthony Davis. In 3 years, they're going to be a dynamite team, and they're going to have maybe a Golden State-esque run for maybe 3 or 4 years. And then they'll retool. Like they know they're never going to be the Lakers that are on national TV every night.
So Oklahoma City, one thing, I guess you're right in that they will have, what they will have is they'll have to try to win with a rookie team, because that's how they can do it, and that's what they can afford during those rookie contracts. But you brought up Zion, and I want to touch on him for a second. He played 9 minutes of the earthquake game during the summer league, had knee-to-knee contact, and now the Pelicans have decided to basically put him on the shelf. He's not going to play any more summer league games. We're assuming he'll make the squad, even though he doesn't have that. But here's my question for you. Since that has happened, the criticism of Zion as a player and how he will perform in the NBA, this is great. This is what happened. This is the whole idle hands thing. It seems to me, just following that, he's gone from the next LeBron to he may be out of the league in a year because he was completely overrated.
Oh, man. I love it. Right? Because we know that's not going to happen. And the fact that the NBA, and this was pointed out to us, that the NBA has been able to turn the summer league sea-level pickup,
the D League's gone. This Vegas summer league, dude. I mean, let's get into the wide-angle coffers and take an official business trip to the summer league, because it's been awesome.
Well, I was watching Mo Bamba, who's the rookie from last year that only played 20 games for the Orlando Magic. He played 19 minutes and they shelved him because he complained of general soreness. And it's similar to the Bamba. So right now, the locals here in media market is is Mo Bamba a bust? And this is why we re-signed Vucevic. And they're just they don't understand it's idle hands. Now,
but on
Zion,
the other hand, you have, and I'm sorry, you got to look, because I don't know if
did you see the 9 minutes that Zion played? Sorry, let me just
they were insane.
The ball,
they were so good.
He ripped the ball out of the guy's hand, threw it down.
Nuts. Yeah,
that guy is going to be fine.
Yeah. Taco Fall. Have you seen Taco Fall?
Oh, I've seen him out in. I've seen him
Florida,
out in Orlando.
Okay.
So he is. I read a stat because he's 7'7",
7'6" officially.
7'6". He has the widest wingspan in the history of the NBA. Beats Mo Bamba.
He doesn't jump to dunk the ball.
Yes, but what's crazy about him? Well, two things about him. I was a little surprised that he went completely undrafted.
Yes.
Right. For what he was able to do to Zion Williams in the March Madness. Remember, UCF almost beat Duke, except for an amazing last-second shot by, I believe, RJ Barrett of now the Knicks. But Taco Fall was a reason of that because of his shot blocking abilities. What's crazy about he is one of the 50th tallest humans in the history of the world.
Yeah, and I think
that's such a weird thing to think about these guys.
Go check out his I think USA Today for the Win, FTW has a story on him with some interview clips on there. I fell in love with him when I heard his interviews, because they were basically did you feel slighted by not getting drafted. And he's like, well, I'm obviously disappointed. And the next thing, and this is why I love the Summer League, because this is what it's for. A reporter, she was like, well, what do you need to do? What are you here to do to show teams that they should sign you? And he said, I need to show them that I'm a big who can move. There are not a lot of the hit on people my size are always that we can't run the floor, that we can't move. Yeah. I can do that.
Or the
That's
injury liability or something.
Yeah, during this Summer League. And he's done it already, and he's not going to be
have to sign him.
He's not.
Right?
He's not going to be playing 35 minutes a game, 40 minutes a game. But you get this guy, and you can get him in there for 15, 20 minutes a game.
They give Bobic in Philadelphia guaranteed 10 minutes every game. Like, Taco Fall will sell tickets.
Was still playing for the Warriors this year.
Yeah,
I mean, get in there and give him good minutes, and this guy's better.
Why would you not
I think
take
at this point, I think if you get this guy, especially on a league minimum, and it's a rookie contract. Why wouldn't you?
Well, why wouldn't you? And I mean, so right now he's with the Celtics in the Summer League.
Yeah.
He'll play for them. I mean, and he'll get his 10 minutes here and there. Like, right? He'll be a good, second or third center for these teams. That can
I think he's going to be a guy who doesn't start the season maybe in the NBA and hopefully gets a shot somewhere along the line.
Oh, I hope. Oh, okay. I hope he does. He's so much fun to watch, though. Just
he's a crowd draw, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so good. I'm ready. I'm gonna be watching some more Summer League, but
did you see?
I know that you are in the process of going out on a little trip, so
yeah,
I'll have to be watching all the sports for you. Are you going to be able to watch anything on your trip?
I don't know. Heading to China. Not really sure what to expect. Going to be there for a couple of weeks. Really looking forward to the trip.
Do me a favor.
It's going to be fun.
How many Yao Ming jerseys are you going to see?
Oh my God, I hope many.
How many of them are the throwback pinstripe Houston Rockets throwback jersey?
I'm just going there to walk the streets and see if I can buy any Jeremy Powers Rafa kits.
That'd be good. I want to know. You need to give me an update if you see a Yao Ming jersey in the wild.
Okay, I will. I will take pictures. I'm going to leave you with this to mull over for the next couple weeks. LeBron James, the Lakers are reporting, will be starting at point guard next year. How long does that work?
Oh, wow. I mean, he could probably make it happen, though.
Yeah.
The number 2 greatest of all time. So
what are you moving on to now? What have you been following? What's on tap?
So this is a great
time of year. Are you waking
up
at 1 a.m. like Tiger Woods to make sure that you're ready to go for the sports day?
No, July, it is the tour time. I mean, tour is like what I'm watching, and baseball's in a lull with the All-Star game, and I don't really care about baseball until like September when the pennant race starts to heat up, and you get that first round game where there's like the 2 wild card teams play it out to see who makes it into the series. Like, I enjoy that. But right now it's kind of a wait and see. I have not been following NHL free agency at all because I've been so consumed by the intricacies of the NBA, and I think it's just because the smaller team size. So you end up, like every team has a good player. Like most NBA fans can tell you who's the good player on each team, and I like that. And there's only like maybe 11 other teammates, whereas the NFL or NHL, outside of the top 4 or 5, players, I just kind of like, all right, I don't know who's on what team.
And there's not that there's any loyalty in any league, but there's such interchangeable parts that you can have a guy who gets you to the playoffs and they'll trade him or waive him or bring him onto the it's like so crazy just how that whole it's much harder to sort of be invested in some of these guys because they just sort of disappear.
Yeah, I do like the ones that embrace what they bring to the franchises. So like seeing PK Subban go from Nashville to the New Jersey Devils, and where the Devils just had the number 1 draft pick in the NHL and took the defenseman Hughes. So now like he has a guy to like learn behind, and PK Subban is one of those NHL characters we need more of. Like, so he instantly changed his Twitter avatar to him dressed up as a devil, which was awesome. Like it was just good. And like he had a great video to the fans in Nashville, like thanking him. But then he was like, all right, New Jersey, let's get this done. Like he was ready to go right away. And I love that. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, the one last thing we didn't talk about, going back to you were talking about free agency and more into the NBA, which is kind of laughable, is that the commissioner of the NBA Adam Silver has come out and said that there needs to be enforceable free agency rules in the NBA, which I don't know how you feel. I am 100% against that. I mean, we already learned that tampering is just even remove it. It shouldn't even be a word anymore because it's just how business is done. And I think that the underlying thread of the more enforceable free agency rules is Adam Silver trying to pull back some of the power from the players, the player empowerment, what realm that we're going through
this
now,
may be his worst idea.
Giving the ownership a little bit more leeway and things. And I'm like, the hell with that. Let's have less. Let's just drop the whole tampering thing. Let people recruit.
I want
do everything
middle
that
of
they
the
want.
season drama. We have it in the Tour de France. It's great. We already know like what teams are going to be losing their sponsorship before it's announced in the Tour, and I love it because then there's the internal team driver. Like, oh, does Bernal even really want to be on this team? Because I heard he's going to be signing to X or whatever. Like Movistar has Carapaz now, and he might go to Ineos, and then there's that internal drama. I love it. And this may be Silver's worst idea. His best idea, though, is the mid-season tournament, and I really hope that takes off because then you could have two different like mini tournaments during the year while there's the regular season, and it just gives me more basketball content, which is what I'm, for some reason, craving.
Yes. Tim.
So, awesome.
We should head out, but before we do, the one thing that I'm looking forward to on my trip to China, especially since I'll be, doing a huge flip-flop of time zones and sleep's going to be all screwed up, and I really don't know what's going to be going on, but I'll be doing a lot of hiking, a lot of walking around, but just completely different sort of lifestyle that I am now. I'm really, really interested to see how my Whoop band reacts to that. It's going to be a really cool test for
you might
Whoop.
have some red circles in those first couple days trying to adjust to the sleep. I will be interested to see how this works because it's so easy to use to monitor the sleep and your stress or your strain level.
Yeah, the strain, and that's the thing. And it's kind of interesting. Like I know that I'm like sort of getting ready for this trip and trying to figure everything else and stress levels and all that, which affects your heart rate. So I did this great stint where I was like riding my bike every day, but like and running for the last 2 days. Really haven't done anything yet. My HRV is sort of this complicated algorithm that they have that figures out when you can put out the most strain or when you should recover. I'm in the red and I haven't done anything, but it's just a basis of looking at my resting heart rate, looking at all these other things and saying, all right, why don't you take another day just to chill out and then you'll be ready to go hard. So that's what I'm loving about this Whoop. It's nice. I'm the dork now. I got Apple on one and Whoop on the other for my wrist, which is perfectly fine. It doesn't bother me. It's something that you all should get if you go to whoop.com. What should we use? Let's use CX Hairs. Yeah,
let's use CX Hairs for sure. And I do just want to add on. So use the CX Hairs code when you're there to save 15% on their subscription service to Monder. You get the free band, right? You get the 3.0 band. It looks good. But I do want to say that I got a text message from a friend of the pod, Graham Partain here in Orlando, and he just sent over 68% sleep performance the other night. Only he only got 68% of what was recommended, but it was super easy to use, and he's like, man, I need to get some more sleep. But it's been fun to see the data as he started whooping, as he called it. So whoop along with us all. I'm pretty stoked on it to be able to monitor our sleep and kind of the strain. It is beyond sleep too, but it does, keep track of all these things. And Bill, the feedback that you give when you're flying across the continent will be interesting to see.
This is going to be a good one. Also, thanks for tuning in to this show. Please go to wideanglepodium.com. Check out all of the other shows that we have on offer. Really, really, really good episode of the Slow Ride podcast just went up. You can learn all about how to make your bike into a prototype bike. And
sleeves. We talked about the sleeves of the downhill champions, and it was inspiring. And Bill, we were stoked to have you come on board at last minute.
Yeah, no, that was fun. But check everything else that's going on at wideanglepodium.com. Think about becoming a member. We would love to have everybody signed up. Please, if you like Part Spin, go to the Part Spin on Apple Podcasts. Leave a review. Leave a rating. If you want to get in touch with us, best place to do that would be feedback@cxhairs.com. Tim, I will miss our chats, but I look forward to getting back into it.
Sports will continue on without us.
Yes. Sport ballers later on.